Here's a bold prediction. The Miami Hurricanes will have a top 15 defense this season, and I'll tell you why.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On this episode, we'll talk about the position group I think is most important to see development from during spring football. Spring practices are officially starting March 3rd. Off-season workouts are already going on now. We will talk about how Miami will not be losing their offensive coordinator to Ohio State. OSU found their guy. And let's get to that bold prediction to start things off, folks. On Miami's defense, I am expecting, and I have reasons for this, significant improvement in 2025 from the unit that cost Miami an ACC championship appearance, cost Miami a college football playoff, because Hurricanes had the number one offense in the country last year. The offense was good enough to play for a championship. The defense is what held them back. Now, Miami's defensive statistics last year, their total defense, which is yards given up, not nearly as bad as you think it was. They ranked 27th in the country in total defense, but 70th in scoring defense. That's points given up, and 57th against the pass. So that most of that was not good enough. Even 27th in total defense was obviously not good enough. Now, you bring over Corey Hetherman, former defensive coordinator at Minnesota, who, I know that the guy that they call the Minnesota Miracle Man is Gordon Bombay from the Mighty Ducks, but I'm going to call Corey Hetherman the Minnesota Miracle Man. So Minnesota last season ranked 5th in the country in total defense, 9th in America in scoring defense, and 10th against the pass. Top 10 in all of these major categories. And Minnesota did that with arguably less defensive talent. They certainly had some like Coy Parrish, but less defensive talent, you could say, than a team like Miami, and a tougher schedule. The Golden Gophers in the Big Ten, they faced 4 teams last year that were ranked inside the top 25 at the time of the matchup. And Corey Hetherman, he got Miami's attention, of course, after 1 year taking over a Golden Gophers defense that before he got there ranked 69th. And then he transformed them into a top 10 unit in one season, basically overnight. So Corey Hetherman's, his approach and his scheme, you expect it to be, because this is his history, it's going to be more aggressive, more direct. I know our guy Truth Teller is like, just go straight at the quarterback. What's all this stunting nonsense? More aggressive, more direct under Hetherman, less complex, and ideally more disruptive. Corey Hetherman's units place big-time results. They produce big-time results in things like forcing turnovers. He puts a big emphasis on that. He also puts a major emphasis on stopping the run to set the tone for everything else. So just having seen the Minnesota Miracle Man work his magic, leaving Rutgers after the 2023 season for Minnesota, I don't see any reason why. And again, Miami's schedule is actually going to be pretty tough next year because the non-conference for the Hurricanes, I mean, the ACC, it is what it is, but you've got Notre Dame and Florida non-conference. So Miami's going to have a tough schedule, tougher than they had last year. But you saw what Hetherman was able to do to Minnesota's defense in one season. Miami, as we're going to talk about, has more talent on the defensive side of the football than they had a year ago. Should be a good recipe for Hetherman to work with. Miami has, we think at least, revamped their defensive secondary in one offseason. Hurricanes have added 5 DBs through the transfer portal, and every defensive back that Miami has added has a 4-star rating, a 4-star transfer portal rating. So these are all considered blue chippers. Xavier Lucas, Charles Brantley, Zechariah Poiser, Emmanuel Carnley, and Ethan O'Connor. They are all 4 stars, ranked in the 90th percentile and above, according to 24/7 Sports. So these are all very capable players that Miami has added to their secondary. Now, Miami needs to, I think, regain consistency from their pass rush, and hopefully Hetherman and that collaboration with him and Jason Taylor produces more consistent results there. But the potential is obviously there with established players in the pass rush like Ruben Bain, who's, of course, got to return to form, Akeem Mesidor, who's back, and Malik Bryant, who I think is ready to break out. Miami's linebacker group, I think, maybe could still add another piece for depth in the spring, but I like the top line guys with players like Wesley Besaint, who's a senior, Popo, who's heading into his third year, Cameron Bobby Pruitt, and Jalen Alderman, who's very experienced. And listen, guys, if Miami had a top 15 defense last season, we'd be talking about, a team that at least got to the college football playoff. I don't know for sure if they would have won it. I mean, some would say, hey, with that number one offense, if you had a top 15 defense, you probably would have won a championship. I don't even know if I'd go that far, but at least you would have been in the dance if you had a top 15 defense last season. And Minnesota's defense under Hetherman, and obviously apples to oranges, every situation is different. Every group of personnel is different, but I do believe Miami's defense has more potential, especially with the new acquisitions they made. I forgot to mention David Blay, who Miami added at defensive tackle, who I think can be an important addition. And we'll talk about Miami's talent at defensive tackle. So, if the Hurricanes can take what was a, 27th rated total defense last year, 70th in scoring defense, that one really hurt, and 57th in passing defense. If you can get into the top 15 or even the top 10 in those categories, hopefully the offense pulls their weight in the post-Cam Ward era, but Carson Beck is good at what he does. And, we can be talking about a team that can compete for something important, but given what Miami has added, the talent on the roster, and Corey Hetherman's history, I see no reason why the Hurricanes cannot have a top 15 defense coming up in the 2025 season. That's on the defensive side of the football. We got some good news. I mean, to me, expected news. I know some were kind of panicking about this. On the offensive side, yeah, Miami is definitely keeping Shannon Dawson. You will have continuity at offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach because he also does that. So early in the week this week, a report, Pete Nakos of On3 had put out a hot board of possible candidates to become OC at Ohio State. They lost Chip Kelly to the NFL for big money. Chip's going to be making $6 million annually for the Las Vegas Raiders. So with that vacancy coming up, they were putting out their hot boards. And one of the guys who was mentioned as possibly being a candidate was Miami's Shannon Dawson. And why not? Why wouldn't he be sought after overseeing the number one offense in the country last year? But we talked about this a little bit yesterday on Locked On Canes. My expectation from checking in with Ohio State people was they were going to promote wide receivers coach Brian Hartline to OC. That's exactly what they did. Brian Hartline now has the OC tag. I don't know how it's not my this is not Locked On Buckeyes, so it's not really my business. I don't know if he's going to be calling the plays or if Ryan Day will be calling the plays, but they got their guy in Brian Hartline, which means Shannon Dawson, as I expected, is staying at Miami. And it's important. I mean, important continuity with Dawson, and he's got a relationship with the quarterbacks that are here. I know that, Dawson was someone who was recruiting Carson Beck to come to Miami. Dawson had a major hand in getting Luke Nickel here. Guys, we've had Luke on the show multiple times, and he speaks so glowingly about Shannon Dawson. So, keeping Dawson at Miami for at least another season, I think is important for continuity. And why not keep the dice rolling? Miami's offense was so good last year. We love having Shannon Dawson back. And, of course, with the Brian Hartline thing, with him obviously staying at Ohio State, if you had any dreams about bringing in that, certain talented young wide receiver that plays for the Buckeyes who has a really good relationship with Brian Hartline, Hartline getting promoted, you can, probably kiss goodbye any dreams you have of bringing JJ home to South Florida. It is what it is. But Shannon Dawson will not be going to Ohio State. He will be staying at the University of Miami. Hurricanes, we'll talk about this when we come back, have locked in a significant official visit for a 2026 recruit. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, we're only getting started with game time. Folks, the hottest ticket in South Florida next month is going to be Golden State Warriors at Miami Heat, the return of Jimmy Butler. And you can get your tickets starting at $118. That's a big one. Warriors at Miami Heat. You can get them on the Game Time app. Guys, you're always finding the best prices and the best features, whether it's for a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game. Finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache at other places, but not at Game Time, because with Game Time picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. Guys, I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now. I love the super deals that you can get for prime seats. I can't believe the value I get. It's an absolute steal. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue and what my sight line is going to look like. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code Locked On College, and they'll give you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you to the Everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. On this episode, we will be answering questions from the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. If you want to join our premium texting service, click the link in the show description below. Become a Locked On Canes Insiders. I give you guys show updates, breaking news, rumors sometimes, which can be a little spicy in there, one-on-one questions and answers. Click the link in the show description below. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. Now, before we get to that, there has been an official visit locked in. And the person who actually saw this from first, shout out to our guy, Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators, who actually put this out on social media, that Jaelen Waters, Seatbelt Waters, who's a Florida Gators commit, verbal commit, but there's been a lot of buzz about a possible Miami flip of Jaelen Waters. Waters has locked in an OV to the Hurricanes, June 13th through the 15th. Seatbelt is going to be in South Florida. Again, this is someone who has been committed to Florida, but Miami has been putting in a ton of energy. This is a player that the Hurricanes really covet for the defensive secondary. 6'2". You love his length, 170-pound cornerback. He's from Armwood High School in the Tampa area. And why not get that Armwood pipeline going? Miami already in the previous recruiting cycle landed Kellen Wiley, star linebacker, and Gerard Pringle, stud running back out of Armwood. And I'm sure that the two of them are recruiting their teammate Seatbelt Waters, who is a class of 2026 prospect. He is a 4-star player, consensus 4-star, 12th ranked cornerback in the class of 2026. And he's going to be making an official visit to Miami this summer. So, of course, we have 2026 recruiting going on. And summer's a really busy time for that, folks, because you see a lot of verbal commits happen June and July. So we'll be all over it on Locked On Canes. Now, you also, there's an important period right now for 2025 recruiting. So the early national signing, or the late national signing period, the early one's in December. The late national signing period opened up yesterday. And some people have been asking me, like, Donno, is Miami going to land more 2025 recruits? Was not expecting Miami to land anyone yesterday. The Hurricanes are essentially done with their 2025 recruiting, at least almost done with their 2025 recruiting. So no, Miami did not land any new commits yesterday or today. I did not expect them to land any. Now, one that folks have been asking me about is, hey, but Donno, what about Javari Flowers? Reclassified from 26 to 2025. So he's in this class now. So here's the misconception. The late signing period, it opened up yesterday, February 5th, but it's open for almost 2 months. So players who are yet to sign for 2025 didn't have to do it yesterday. My understanding, I looked up the NCAA timelines on this stuff. I think the late signing period is open until April 1st, which is April Fool's Day is probably not the deadline day you want there for fake news reasons, but it's open till April 1st. So Javari Flowers had made it very clear he's not making a decision this month. He's going to take some official visits. Hopefully Miami gets one of those, and he's going to decide probably in late March or at least by April 1st. Miami is still considered by many to be the front runner for the defensive back out of Miami Northwestern. Great player, but watch out for Georgia, because Georgia has been gaining a ton of late momentum there since they offered Flowers recently. So that seems to be a program to watch. Hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, Miami can get that one over the finish line, and then maybe Javari Flowers could join up with this already talented class of 2025. Let's get to you guys' questions. We get one from ITK on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. He says, hey, do we think any of the current wide receivers on the roster can develop into a big-time playmaker that's going to cause opposing defenses issues and possibly stretch the field? I am most bullish in the short term on Josiah JoJo Trader heading into his second year. That's the guy that I'm most bullish on for this season, because Trader, you got a little bit of a taste of what he can do in that Pop-Tarts Bowl where, I know that was the rivals love to make fun. You guys were in the Pop-Tarts Bowl and you lost the game. They've been haunting us with that. But JoJo Trader was not the reason why you lost the Pop-Tarts Bowl. He played really well. He gave you a taste of it. And going back to his time in high school, he was a constant big play threat. Trader. So he has the knack for making difficult one-hand type circus catches look routine. JoJo Trader to me is someone that you talk about developing into a big play, stretch the field threat. Josiah Trader is the one that I'm most bullish on right now. I think he's the closest one to breaking out. Now there are other candidates that have to be developed and prove it. In terms of longer term development, I'm very intrigued by Josh Moore coming in as a true freshman because he's got that size. I'm really intrigued by Nye Carr, who I expect to be a big part of the rotation this year. Chance Robinson, same thing. And Malachi Toney coming in as a true freshman. I think he's going to provide some competition for Ray Joseph at the slot. Like there are guys that can be developed long term, and hopefully Kevin Beard is at Miami for a lot longer, because I think he's a great wide receivers coach. But as far as the one that I think is just like on the cusp of breaking out, I think it's Josiah Trader. Great question. We get this question from Caesar, who says, can Cam Ward avoid the draft for one more year and come back? Caesar, I know that you're joking, but you're kind of not joking when you say that. And no, and Ward, he's going to be the number one overall pick. That is almost certain. Do you guys see that video of Ward, who's doing his pre-draft training with Shedeur Sanders? It looks like they're working out at the SMU facility. Ward is from that area of Texas. And did you see him from 70 yards out, he throws this bomb that hits the crossbar, and I think he did it on purpose. I don't think it was that. I think Cam Ward from 70 yards away was aiming for the crossbar. I mean, unfreaking believable. And he's about to change the fortunes of likely the Tennessee Titans, or there's been some chatter that the Giants may try to trade up for the number one pick to draft Ward, but he's about to make some NFL franchise better than they were. He's not coming back. We are all in on Carson Beck. We're all in on Beck. And listen, and there was actually a good article that David Lake put out at InsideTheU.com earlier this week, taking a look at, Beck. He's not going to have this sort of a gauntlet in the ACC, but last season, we know Georgia had a tough schedule last year, even by SEC standards. Carson Beck went up against 8 of the top 30 defenses in America, 8 in a 12-game schedule. Miami, for example, only went up against 2 of the top 30 defenses in the country in our 12-game schedule. Carson Beck went up against 4 times as many top 30 defenses. And, I know his numbers were down a little bit last year compared to the year prior, but he still played really well, especially against the Tennessee Titans defense. He had a really good game. And, against Alabama, he threw 3 interceptions, but he also threw 3 touchdowns and 300 plus yards. So, Carson Beck has seen everything. And, if Miami can keep him protected, which is something he didn't have much of at UGA, their offensive line was not very good last year. I think Carson Beck can have a great year at Miami. I'm not saying he's going to make anybody forget about Cam Ward, but I think we're all right. I think we're in good hands, folks. We get this one from Oud Red, who says, is the spring football game, going to be open to fans at Miami? Spring game, by the way, guys, is going to be April 12th. That's a Saturday, I believe. Saturday, April 12th at 4 p.m. on campus at Cobb Stadium. So, yes, the spring game will be open to fans, but that's limited space. I think 4,000 or 5,000 seats at Cobb, something like that. So you're going to need to score a free ticket. Like the event is free, but you can't just walk in. And you're also not guaranteed necessarily to get a ticket, because here's how it works. This is how it worked last year anyway. The tickets were first offered to Hurricane Club members and season ticket holders, and then I think whatever remains gets offered to general fans. So you're going to have to keep checking the Miami website and social media accounts. I will try to give you guys updates when I can. If I see something about, hey, like general tickets are available, I will let you guys know. But the event is free, but you're not guaranteed a ticket. You have to. And if you're a Hurricane Club member watching this, then you're good. You're going to be able to get your tickets, no problem. Season ticket holders, same thing. But if you're not one of those, you're going to have to be watching the websites and the socials like a hawk. Got a really good question I'm going to answer on the other side, among others. Who do we think are going to be the 3 starting wide receivers for spring football? And which position group needs to have the most significant offseason development? Keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Guys, I'm going to have my prize picks fired up for the big game coming up this weekend. It's almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with prize picks. The best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' stat projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard for you to win. That's a free space, guys. Pair that with 1 or more correct picks, and you're cashing out. This week, guys, I'm looking at the board. I'm going to be selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards. Obviously, I'm selecting more for Patrick Mahomes passing yardage. And what I love most, fast, safe withdrawals, because when I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners in the big game lineups. If you could tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today, Prize Picks, and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Guys, make sure if you want to ask questions we answer on shows, become a Locked On Canes insider. Click the link in the show description below to try it free for 14 days. And make sure for your next listen, you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you through the conference. We've had the ESPN TV extension, lawsuits, settlements, Duke basketball dominance, all of this stuff on Locked On ACC, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So we get this question. Who do you think is going to be our starting 3 wide receivers for spring football? That's from Sammy. Okay, so the one thing I'm not sure about is, CJ Daniels, about his, I know he was coming off an injury. Hopefully he's like complete. I don't know if he is or isn't completely recovered by March 3rd. If CJ Daniels is full go, he's going to be one of your 3 starters, along with JoJo Trader and I believe Nathaniel Ray Joseph at the slot. If CJ is not full go in spring, I'm going to go with Trader, Ray Joseph, and Nye Carr. I think Nye Carr could probably be the backup to CJ Daniels this season. So that's my 3/4 starting receivers for spring. But you know what? The magic of spring football is you don't always know, man. I mean, a lot of us had Sam Brown penciled in as a starter, and there, that wasn't always the case. And sometimes certain guys step up in spring that you don't expect. So I can't wait to see how it plays out, because you never know. Like, what if Chance Robinson really pushes and surges for a starting job? What if Malachi Toney really pushes Ray Joseph and gets some first team reps? Like, I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out, because there is no depth chart and certainly no starting lineup that is set in stone for Miami. Every position is going to be up for grabs. And in spring, we're not likely to see Carson Beck as a full go. So heck, I can't wait to see, Luke Nickel, how much he can push Emory Williams and Judd Anderson. How's he looking? Because Judd, we're probably not fair to Judd. We don't talk about him enough. I definitely saw development, like between spring football last year when he was an early enrollee through fall camp. Like, I saw Judd getting significantly better. So a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to seeing. We get this good question here. If you could choose one position group to have significant offseason development, which would it be? But he says you can't choose cornerback because we invested so much in the portal. All right, so if you're taking corner out of that, I'm going to say defensive line, guys. That group, as talented as they were last year, they were not consistent enough. It felt like feast or famine from the defensive line, especially from a guy like Tyler Barron, who's obviously he's off. He's going to go to the NFL. But Barron, in certain games, like the Florida game, looked completely unblockable. And then in other games was very quiet, right? So, and Ruben Bain had his struggles with injury and consistency last year. So a defensive line for me, because guys, some of Miami's top young players, like guys who were first year and heading into their second year, because Jason Taylor has recruited so well on the defensive line the past two cycles. Some of Miami's most talented young players are in that position group, and we need to see them develop and take the next step. I mean, Justin Scott, former 5-star recruit, Marquise Lightfoot, got his 5th star last year. Hayden Lowe coming in as a 5-star guy. Armando Blunt, 5-star or 4-star, depending on which service you look at. Artavius Jones, 4-star. Cole McConaughey, I think he was a 3-star, but an underrated 3-star. Herbert Scroggins coming in this year, 4-star guy. So, we need to see that unit, that defensive line. I'm only really talking about a lot of those guys are edges. Justin Scott, a tackle, and David Blay coming in to play tackle. Like, we need to see that unit, I think, really develop in terms of the youth and really become a consistently dominant unit, because they weren't consistent enough last year. So if you're taking cornerback off the board for me, I'm going to go with the defensive line, because we need to see these guys develop and match their potential that they all had coming out of high school. We get this question from Manny from Miami. He says, what do you think of Carson Beck's character and his locker room presence? Honestly, Manny, it would be very unfair for me to answer that question, because I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Carson Beck yet. So, I can't answer. Like, is he going to be like as much of an alpha as Cam Ward was? I mean, it's hard to imagine, but like, I can't answer that. Like, when I get to meet Carson, hopefully he'll be available to us the first practice of spring ball, March 3rd. Or maybe he won't be, though, because he's not going to be fully healthy. But I don't know. Whenever I get the opportunity to meet and see Beck in action, I can make an assessment, because, guys, I remember a year ago at this time, before I had met Ward, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, all I knew of Cam Ward, outside of the on-field talent, of course, but all I knew of him was, hey, this is a guy who kind of teased going to the NFL. I didn't know, is he kind of Hollywood? Is he a diva? Could not have been farther from the truth. So I don't know. I don't want to jump to any conclusions on Beck before I meet the guy. So I don't know. I will revisit this question in a couple of months. How about that? We get this one. Is there any chance that Alabama wide receiver Ryan Williams enters the transfer portal? If so, what are the chances the Canes can get it? Obviously, Bama really values Ryan Williams after the season that he had last year. I think they would do whatever they have to do to keep him there. Has there been some buzz that maybe he could reevaluate? Is it? Sure. And one thing I'll say is, Alabama, I don't think they know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Miami does, at least. That's an advantage for Miami. I've even heard some chatter that maybe Isaiah Horton, who left Miami for Bama, might be having a little buyer's remorse, because he left Miami without knowing who the quarterback was going to be before Miami got Carson Beck. So listen, I don't know if it's going to be Ryan Williams, but we've all heard the chatter that with Carson Beck now at Miami and his proven track record, and, he seems to, you asked me about Beck's leadership. I couldn't answer the question, but I do know that this is someone that guys seem to want to play with. So I'll give Beck that. So, we've heard these rumors about maybe a really good receiver and may want to leave his current situation to join Beck in Miami. I don't know who it's going to be, but hopefully it's going to be somebody really good. Let's see. Is the coaching staff set yet? Someone asks. And do we get the names of all the behind the scenes analysts that now have access to all the players? No, the coaching staff is not set yet. I mean, we talked yesterday about Miami adding Coach Terry Jefferson as an assistant DB's coach, but I think Miami is still looking for a safeties coach. I believe Miami is still looking for another defensive line coach to work with or under Jason Taylor on the defensive line. So the coaching staff is not set yet. And like I have kind of assumed that Corey Hetherman was going to double as the linebackers coach, but that has not been confirmed yet to my knowledge. So there are still some moving parts on the defensive staff. The offensive staff seems to be set. I would imagine, obviously, the timelines are, you get it done whenever you find the right people, but I would imagine that the coaching staff will probably be set before spring football begins. And people may forget this, but I guess it was 2 years ago when Kevin Beard came back to Miami. He didn't get hired until like right before spring ball started that year, 2 years ago. So, it went down to the wire. Maybe it'll do that for some of these openings this year, but I think Miami's probably going to have a full staff by March 3rd. That is just my opinion, of course. As far as like the names of behind the scenes analysts, I think at some point there's going to be a coaching roster that's going to come out. I don't think that's going to come out until shortly before the season, where they list like all the analysts and stuff. That usually gets published like on the Miami website, but I don't think they have to do that until like right before the season starts. Oh man, as always, we've got more questions here that we haven't answered yet. I'm going to answer some more questions on my weekly mailbag column at canescounty.com. Look for that over the next couple of days. And if we have time because we got a Friday up, and today's Thursday, it's Friday Eve. Maybe for our Friday episode, we'll answer some more of you guys' questions, because we had some more good ones come in that I have not answered yet. In the meantime, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Canes, subscribe to the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Subscribe on YouTube for the video version, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.